It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Shorman and this is the Forum on Eagle Community Television. It's great to have you watching along. We have a special guest today and that is Jerry Michaud, who is the President of Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas. Jerry, good to have you here today.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Gary.
You know what, it seems all of a sudden the new year is here, we're plowing through it, and yet a lot of things are taking place. First off, over at Developmental Services, you guys just finished an accreditation at the end of last year. Why do you go through an accreditation process anyway?
Well, we choose to go through, we've actually been accredited through the organization spelled, the acronym is CARF. It used to stand for the Commission on Accreditation for Rehabilitation Facilities, a mouthful.
Sounds like a serious group to come stop by your place.
It's the Accreditation Commission, and the surveyors that come, we had 5 surveyors for 3 days that went through our entire operation from the administrative perspective all the way down to what happens in the community services themselves. And it was a great survey. It's an awful lot of work to keep up with the standards. Those standards are established as really as best practices from across the United States, and actually now they're international. And it's just the best practices become the national standards by which we're measured by.
So the clients that you have out there, you know, they know that you work hard to do a good job, because I don't think you have to go through this accreditation process, do you?
No, it is an elective process. We choose that path because it drives our quality. And quality is very, very important to us. When you talk about providing services and supports to people with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities, the interactions, there are tens of thousands of human interactions that happen each day, and the quality of those interactions is very important.
One of the things I know, and people out there watching, you hear about DSNWK, Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas. You guys have been here for a long time, and you help so many people. How has that changed over the last 10 years? Because you cover a large area.
Right. Well, Developmental Services started 47 years ago by a handful of parents who desired something more for their sons and daughters. And out of that grassroots effort became kind of the beginnings in Hayes and in Hill City and Atwood. And that grew up to be the organization that we have today, which is we're a not-for-profit, a 501c3, and you know, it's been a march from a handful of people served to nearly 500 individuals throughout Northwest Kansas.
You talk about 500 individuals, but you talk about also 18 counties. That keeps you on the road a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. I did the math one time, and the service area is about 17,000, a little over 17,000 square miles. And windshield time is considerable in terms of our own region, but my work often takes me to Topeka as well.
And we'll talk about legislative things in just a couple of minutes. You mentioned 500. You know, you see individuals that need the kind of help you provide, and yet in Northwest Kansas, 500 of those individuals are being helped through your program. That is a big number.
It is. It is. The range of supports that occur for people range from intermittent supports to folks that are pretty high, have a lot of abilities to do manage their own life and their own personal well-being, but just need a little bit to help them be successful. To the other end of the spectrum, where a person requires total support around the clock, and we cover that all, including the full range of age spectrum, where we work with the infants and toddlers all the way up to people when they would leave our service only when their level of support would require like 24 hours of nursing support, which goes beyond what we're able to provide.
You talk about 47 years. You haven't been there for all 47 years, have you?
No, I started in September of 1991.
So you've been there quite a few years. That's getting close to about 23 or 24 years, isn't it?
You're a mathematician. There should be.
And of course, Jim Bloom was there before.
He was.
For many years, and it's a great program. Did you ever think you'd be at this spot taking care of 500 people in Northwest Kansas?
Yeah.
Because it is a neat story.
Right, right. No, did I have the vision that someday I would be at the helm of this great organization made up of wonderful staff, and I can say that sincerely. I would not have envisioned that, but here we are.
Well, it's fun to tell that story. I mean, in fact, you dropped off a notebook here, empowering people, enriching lives, unlocking potential, and that's really the theme that you go by there. When you look at that, funding becomes such a critical part of that. Obviously, donations are part of that. We'll talk about your legacy program in a little bit. But one of the things that's happened statewide, state funding has been rolled back, and that's probably a trend that's going to continue. How does that affect developmental services in Northwest Kansas?
Well, unfortunately, it has a detrimental effect, and it makes it difficult to measure, because when you talk about the level of support that you can provide to individuals and their families, and how that plays out, it is a difficult. That's where it plays out, is at that, primarily at that level, when you see there's fewer staff available. And we could talk about the unemployment rate, which in many cases is a good thing. When you're trying to attract employees to work with low unemployment, makes it very difficult.
And have you had to cut back some services since the first of the year?
Yeah, actually, we could go back as we had a major change in 2008 where we had to downsize by nearly $1 million, then closed a service center in Colby, consolidated group living sites, and shrunk to balance to be on balance. And then, as of recent, we're having to do a very major set of changes again. We've had to end our supported home care service. The services for people continue, but as an organization, are unable to continue to provide that support because the cost went upside down.
What happens there? If somebody's in a home and all of a sudden you go out, does somebody else step in, or does the service just go away and parents and families jump in?
Well, there are different services, whether it's an operated home, like a group living arrangement that we may operate, or where it's services that are provided in a family's home. For those families, we have been a support to them in finding staff, training staff, and making sure that they have that available to them throughout the Northwest Kansas counties. What's happened of recent is we had to tell families. There was 44 families affected by that change, and affected 95 employees. That's a huge thing. We were at a deficit or a loss in that program alone of over $135,000 a year, and you can't continue to do that. The net result of our funding situation, we're funded primarily through federal and state cooperation under the Medicaid program called the Home and Community-Based Services Waiver for our services. And those rates that come in that funding channel have not been affected. They haven't been increased since 2008. Health insurance, talk to any businessman and they'll tell you health insurance costs have gone through the roof. And that's been our experience as well. You have costs that drive up, even inflationary costs go up, and flat funding results in a transition.
And at some point you have to have a balanced budget.
Absolutely.
Money doesn't come out of just the sky, so you have to find a way to manage that.
Exactly.
That ties into, you mentioned you travel 18 counties, but then you also travel to Topeka.
Yes.
Because the legislature has a chance to set and change some of those things as well. Tell us what you're doing in Topeka this year. What would you like the legislature to do?
Well, we meet with our legislators, and we've been blessed to have folks that will, really genuinely listen, and we're glad about that. There are so many changes that are unfolding in our system today that keeping them attuned to what's happening is an essential piece that happens. We've invited them out for kind of sit-downs, tours, if you will, to come and hear of our concerns. We've met with some individually, and we'll continue that conversation through the session so that they can advocate on behalf of citizens in Northwest Kansas that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. Their voice is maybe not as easy to hear, but it's equally as important to hear, and we carry that voice for them and with them.
Well, Jerry, we're going to take a break. You mentioned before when we were talking earlier about funding sources. One of those is your legacy program, and that's sort of something new. Not new, but it's something that's a big part of what you do. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about that, and maybe talk a little bit about how technology plays into what you do in today's world as well.
Excellent. Very
Jerry
good.
Michaud has been our guest. He is the president of Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas. Back with more after this from Hayes Med.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum program here on Eagle Community Television. And you know what? We record this on Monday afternoons here at our Dillon's location. It seems like it's a very loud day today here at Dillon's. A lot of people doing shopping today. If you want to come by and say hi, we'd love to see you. Again, our Dillon's location on Vine Street. If you have any ideas, questions, comments, suggestions, I'd like to hear them. Send them to me at gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also go online if you're a Facebook person. You can go online and find us at ECTV Forum, and we'll be your friend. Our guest is Jerry Michaud, who is the president of Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas. Jerry, we went into the break talking about technology. It's changing everybody's part of the world. How does that change how developmental services work?
Well, for us, the access to the internet and connectivity is very, very important. We operate, obviously, email systems within our organization. We have service sites in Atwood and Norton and Hill City and Russell and Hayes and Stockton, and connecting to those people for communication, for meeting information, documents, those types of things is very important.
Well, I was just thinking as costs include, travel costs is expensive to do. Finding ways to be able to manage that better may make some sense along the line for doing that. However, what you do doesn't get taken care of with an iPad or a computer. It takes a real person helping another human being. And that's one of the challenges you run into with expenses.
Yeah, people need support with skin on, if you know what I mean. People have in a people business, serving people and their families, it's absolutely being present. That presents a real challenge when the person you're working with is living up in northwest corner of Cheyenne County or Wallace County, which is a couple hours, 2.5 hours away one way. That does add
and an email doesn't do it.
And an email doesn't do it. The personal touch is very important. We've unfortunately had to kind of scale some of that back. Some of our meetings we do over telephone conference call, which is not ideal. We've been forced to go that direction. On the business side of things, we use webinars and these kind of go-to-meeting type of formats where you can see the face of the person you're working with. It's not the same as being there, but nonetheless, it isn't a way of using.
Better than nothing.
It's a way it saves an awful lot of time and miles.
Jerry, let's talk about somebody out there that may have known about developmental services, but want to participate financially. You mentioned the legacy program. How has that changed over the years? Is more support coming that way? Is less support? It's obviously tax deductible because of 501c3. 501c3. How do people find out about that?
Well, finding out about what we do, we've been a 501c3. Our Legacy Society is relatively new in the last year, where we've really kind of got it off the ground.
What does that mean, Legacy Society?
The Legacy Society is really a concerted effort on our part to make people aware, first, what we do, and there's a lot of folks that know who we are and know what we do, but there's an awful lot of people that may not know that. And I think as they become aware and as they look to their future plans, their final plans, their estate planning, that they might think about developmental services and supporting them in that in their planning process. The Legacy Society is a vehicle for that to take place. People have contributed to us throughout the years, and our appreciation so heartfelt to all of our donors that have kind of been with us along the tough and tumble days. But this is an effort to reach out to folks as they do their final planning to participate in that way.
If they want to learn more about that, do they call you? I know you have this packet here that really tells a lot. It's your annual report. Talks about, shows pictures, has some great success stories.
Yes.
If they want this, how do they find it? How do they get a hold of you and
Well,
work
there's
through that?
several ways that they could reach to us. One would be for those that are tied into the internet. You can go to our website, which is Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas. We spell it out as an acronym, DSNWK.org. You can go there. There's a little link in there for the Legacy Society, and it's an amazing tool. It helps people to look at a will if they've not ever thought about that. And I was surprised to learn that it's estimated 70% of people do not have a will. And so there's some utilities within that website that will help people to kind of get the groundwork. Of course, it's not a replacement for good, sound legal advice.
But it's a start.
But it gets people started. Some people in their planning could, take out a life insurance policy and name the organization as a beneficiary, as an example. Some people are unable to give of their wealth today, but in their passing might be able to. And so we're hoping that as people realize the financial circumstances that we and others in the state that provide similar services, that there may be an avenue that they could really help us.
Well, this is a book, and it has some great things to look at. And if you can get that and online, find a way to discuss that and show that story, it's a great way to do that. Now, your offices are here in Hayes,
Yes.
And so they can stop by and pick up one of these there as well?
Absolutely. They can stop in. They can call the office. They could ask for, if they have specific information about the Legacy Society, they could reach out to Alan Schmidt, who is our planned giving officer, and he can answer any questions. I'd be glad to visit with folks who have an interest. It's been amazing. I had a person walk into my office the other day and said, I was wanting to do something for year-end giving, and popped in and made a donation, which very much value that. There's a great need. Our state and federal funding is diminished. It's diminished, and we'll continue to work on that avenue. But this is a long-term strategy.
So you don't have to wait till the end of the year to do that. They could walk into your office later today and it'd be just as good, or tomorrow, right?
I'd welcome that anytime.
Jerry, thanks to the work you and your team do for those 500 individuals in Northwest Kansas with Developmental Services Northwest Kansas. Thanks for being on our program.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jerry Michaud, who is the president of Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas, based in Hayes but covering 18 counties and helping 500 people in Northwest Kansas. That's our program today. It's brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communications, our community connected.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.